Is most of the growth from YouTube, because I'm trying to crack the code myself,
Sure.
has it really been from just putting out the content and the YouTube algorithm picking it up and feeding it to the audience, or has it? So when you were starting your channel originally, was it
Yep.
Rick who said to you basically put out 25 videos and then come on to my show? And was
Yep.
that the boost that gave it? Was that the thing that gave it the initial boost? Was when you were on his channel, and like what were you learning in those 25 videos to get to that position?
Well, actually, I just recorded the A roll for a course that I'm going to do that's specifically written for how to do YouTube, but just for musicians and all the different versions of what a channel would look like. Because I think there's this misunderstanding that a channel has this one purpose of, selling t-shirts or whatever, channel purposes are. And so Rick was always, I was talking to him about his channel. It was growing pretty rapidly at the beginning. And if you look at the really, really early videos, he's doing phone videos just like anybody else. His early videos look terrible and they sound terrible. And he said, you always have such good stories, and you put things together in an interesting way. You should make some videos about just as you're thinking. Rick is very extemporaneous. He's just like talks to camera. I'm not that guy. I'm going to write a script. If you watch my early videos, I'm looking at you below the camera now, but on the early videos, I'm doing the same thing. I don't have a teleprompter for my script. I'm reading a piece of paper below and covering the J cuts with, an image or something.
Yeah.
And so I started making videos, and I don't think I made 25. He did say make 25, and I think I had like 13. But the third video I ever made was a video called How Many Guitars Do You Need? And when I made that, Rick's like, oh my God, that's a perfect YouTube title. And no one had done it. Nobody had done a video where they did a series. There were a couple of people who did videos with a similar title where they were really going, well, you need this. Oh no, you need these 15. That was the joke. And I was like, no, really, it's a real thing. But I did that video as an exercise to teach myself editing, because I knew I would just do hundreds of pictures. And typically my videos, those history videos, have between 300 and 400 images in them now. So it was good. And it was that video, the fact that that video was there. And then I did this on a video with Dave Honorato and Rick, where Rick's describing it. I think it must have been the next summer. I went to Rick's every 6 months for the first year and a half of the channel and made videos with him. And the first time when I got there, I had 427 subscribers, basically your friends and your family and your family's friends,
Yeah, right.
And then when I left, it's still the biggest. When I did a live stream with him where he actually made me play like chord changes for Bubasa so he could do a talk about it or something. And yeah, and when I left, and then I made, right on the heels of that, I started making short history videos about amplifiers. And the history videos are what took off. But the weekend after Rick's, I had 2,500 subs in a day or something, just from that live stream.
So is most of the growth from YouTube, because I'm trying to crack the code myself.
Sure.
Has it really been from just putting out the content and the YouTube algorithm picking it up and feeding it to the audience, or has it been from moments like going on a bigger channel or just a different channel and exposing your audience to that, or a combination of both?
I think you need to get your head above the horizon to start to get enough views like that moment with Rick. But if I didn't have something in the catalog, and honestly, Rick was absolutely right. You need to have a deep enough catalog so that when you come above the horizon, people can go there and watch 3 videos. And then they get a sense of whether or not they're going to subscribe or not. On average, still, my videos, the short histories run a half an hour. But still, when you look at my analytics, the average number of views is 1.8, which means people on average go and watch 2 of my videos at a time, which is a huge investment of time. I mean, in this day and age, especially, it's always been true, but especially now, your attention is the most precious thing you can give.
Right.
And so to get somebody's attention, to get somebody to do that, the short histories took off. But it's interesting. I have this sort of duality in the channel where I make videos about like what's enough and minimalism and how many guitars do you need. Those videos drive subscriptions, but they also drive merchandise sales. And to me, buying a t-shirt like this is a real indication of somebody wanting to be a part of the community. And when I make videos like I just did about, I'm working on a video now, what's the most important moment in electric guitar history? And a video like that will generate so much engagement that it gets the algorithm's attention, and people watch the whole thing because they're waiting to know. It's a list video. which is always a sure thing to have long view times. But it's that the only things you need to know about the algorithm are you making thumbnails that are engaging enough? I always tell people this: a good thumbnail and a title is the beginning of a conversation. Nobody's going to want to hear the rest of the story if the first line of the story isn't a great story, doesn't get your attention. Hey,
Right.
is that a Brad Paisley Telecaster? That's a very cool guitar.
Yeah.
And that would start a conversation with somebody, at a pickup gig someplace.
And I think you said this when you interviewed Tim Pierce, would you send him thumbnails? Like you would send him 3 thumbnails and
Yeah.
he would pick the best one. And were you designing them yourself, basically?
Oh, always. Yeah. You have to, no one can start the conversation but you. So I don't have, and it's always funny when people say, I want to thank you and your team. And I go, I'm in a small bedroom in a ranch house in
This is
upstate
the
New York.
team. This
That's
is
right.
it.
So
Yeah.
yes, I have lots of people that I work on videos with, but when it comes to reading comments and answering comments, and I read them all still, I'm right at that. I don't know. I'm right at a size where I can still get through that at 267, whatever it is this morning, thousand. So the answer to your question
Yeah.
about subs and how do you break through is, I'd say it's consistency. You need to be putting things out on a schedule, almost treat it like a television show. And then people get, so I literally, when I don't have a Thursday morning release, I get messages on Instagram from people like, am I going to get something tomorrow? Is it
What
going to
do I
be
do with my
Saturday?
life now? I can't watch your video. There's
Hey,
a chunk.
well, you know what? Hey, I know the guys at that pedal show now after all these years, but if that's my Friday morning, like I set time aside and watch
Yeah.
that pedal show on Fridays, So
Right.
I totally get that. As the old joke goes, I'm also a fan. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's the key. That's one of the keys. Like I put it all in the course, but the real thing is quality over quantity. There was this time when people thought you had to do 2 a week. There's so many successful channels where that's not true. Or Tim, actually, I got to know Tim because Tim was burned out, fried, and he was talking to Rick about it. They're really good friends. And Rick says, and Tim's like, I got to take time off. It was like the holidays. He's like, I got to take some time off. And Rick's like, you know what? You're talking to the wrong guy. You should talk to Keith. Keith knows about taking time off. Keith knows about work-life balance. And so Tim literally, he's like, can I call you? I'm like, of course. And so we had this hour-long conversation. Tim and I have these long conversations. And yeah, there is this sort of brain trust that you have to build where you can trust other people's, I tease Tim that he's the title whisperer. No one titles like Tim. He has a real knack. It took him a while. I watched him learn it, but once he did, he starts a conversation like nobody else. And of course, no one has his life. He's like Rick that way. He's a unicorn, and that he's in a space where his whole life led up to that. I saw Derek Wells do an interview lately, and I've just been quoting it all over the place, where he said, when people hire him for a session, they're not paying him for the time he's there. They're paying him for the 30 years he spent getting ready to sit in the chair. The time in the chair is free.
Right.
And I was like, oh my God, that's it. That's where Rick is. That's Zach Childs, where he can just turn on his phone and do 20 minutes on string gauges. Who can do that? There's nobody like Zach Childs.